Pokémon on the DS is considered by many fans to be the peak of the series. They were unstoppable with games like Platinum, Heart Gold and Soul Silver, and Black and White. But the last installments, Black 2 and White 2, were where a lot of fans believed that the game series was at its best. But are these games really that good, or is nostalgia just blinding us all? Pokémon Black and White 2 released on October 7th, 2012 in North America, June 23rd, 2012 in Japan, October 12th, 2012 in Europe, and October 11th, 2012 in Australia. Before this game released, I remember watching YouTube videos of the release from Japan and foaming at the mouth waiting for this game. These are direct sequels to Pokémon Black and White. Outside of Generation 2, this was the first game that continued the story of another Pokémon game. They take place 2 years after the events of Black and White, and you get to see how the story played out in the years that have passed. Typically, a few years after the release of a game, Pokémon would release a deluxe version like Platinum and Emerald. They serve as the best way to play those generations, and they have loads of quality of life improvements and usually a streamlined story. But they take place at the same time as the other story and serve as more of a director's cut. Black and White 2 not only serves as a director's cut, but gives a new story along with it, which is a great change of pace. One of the most notable changes is the expanded Pokédex, which now includes over 300 Pokémon from previous generations. This was a massive change because a major complaint of the originals is that the game lacked any Pokemon from outside of Unova in the base game. By bringing back Pokemon from other regions, it gave trainers the ability to build a team that really resonated with them. And this made Unova feel way more connected to the other games, and even though I liked the limited variety of Pokemon in Black and White, this made the sequels stand out more and feel like a standard Pokemon game. It just makes sense there would be at least some returning Pokemon in this region. You play as a new protagonist from Aspertia City. What, are they trying to make this a tongue twister? Just like every mainline Pokemon game, your goal is to collect the 8 gym badges from various locations across the region and then face the Elite Four to become the Pokemon champion. You have a rival who's also from your hometown, and his name is Hugh, and he's one of my favorite rivals in the modern Pokemon games. He has the goal to destroy Team Plasma because a few years earlier they stole his Purloin that he planned to give to his sister. After Generation 2, all of the Pokemon rivals have turned to being friendly rivals like May, Barry, and Sharon and Bianca. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. You can have a friendly rival that you still want to beat throughout the journey. But the rivals should give you a reason to want to beat them. They should have their own goals and ambitions, but after Generation 2, that just isn't the case. Hugh's hatred for Team Plasma is what drives him, which means he doesn't have the same ambition as you to become the Pokemon League champion. He really just wants to get revenge from what happened to him years earlier, which is a great change of pace for a rival. I wouldn't say he's the best rival in the series, but the fact that they gave him some sort of personal ambition and personality when the standard had been a flat, one-dimensional character is great to see. The Unova region is great even the second time around because a lot has changed. You start on the other side of the map, which is a nice change of pace. The new starting point helped these games stand out from the originals, and the game is pretty eventful right from the beginning. You get to meet Adler right from the beginning, who's the former champion from the last games, and you get to watch him jump off a cliff. Hey, get down from there! Oh my god, I meant walk around! The first hour or two of the game is decently slow, but it's full of fan service. The first gym is led by your rival from the last game, Charon. He's a normal type gym leader, which is kind of boring compared to the first game where you had trainers who were guaranteed to counter you from the start and give you a decent challenge, but considering how much fan service this gives, I'm not surprised they had Charon first. You even get to see Bianca right off the bat because she's working for Professor Juniper and she gives you your starter Pokemon. Just like in the first game, you get to pick between Tepig, Snivy, and Oshawott. I don't think anyone was expecting to get different starter choices, but just like in Black and White, these are great starters overall. But getting to see Adler, Charon, and Bianca at the beginning of the story provides a solid frame for the rest of the story to run into returning characters and see what's changed with their lives too, which is one of the best parts of this game overall. The time skip being 2 years into the future is just enough time where the world's gone through a pretty substantial change, but not enough to be totally unrecognizable. During your journey, you face the remnants of Team Plasma, who have a cool new outfit and name, Team Neoplasma. Oh, I don't know how to feel about this. They've split into 2 factions, one seeking to liberate Pokemon led by N, and the other aimed at controlling them led by Ghetsis. Not enough time has passed where any decisive things have happened since we defeated them in the first game. Team Neoplasma is working for Ghetsis, and they're still causing chaos around the region. Throughout the game, you have to fight them various times and learn more about their plans to use the legendary Pokemon Kyurem for their goal to freeze the entire Unova region. Not only are you tasked with beating all 8 gyms and defeating the Elite Four, you now have to deal with the sore losers from 2 years ago. After going on your journey and collecting the gym badges, you eventually have to stop Ghetsis and his scientist buddy Chloris from fusing Kyurem with either Reshiram or Zekrom depending on what game you have. Ghetsis plans on using Kyurem to freeze the entire region so he can be the only one to control Pokemon. At the last minute, N swoops in and tries to stop him, but it gives Ghetsis the ability to fuse Kyurem with the other legendary Pokemon, creating a powerful fusion form. The idea that this is possible in the Pokemon universe but has only been talked about in these games is wild to me. Fusing two Pokemon together seems like a natural thing they would want to explore, but I get with over 1,000 Pokemon now, the need to create fusions for every single combo would be a lot.
I want to fuse Machamp and Bellsprout.
Why would you even say that? After defeating the fusion Pokemon, they separate and you battle Ghetsis and knock some sense into him. The Shadow Triad takes him away,
And then N tells you to go face the Pokemon League.
the story being a direct continuation was a bold but smart move. Generations 4 and 5 are known for having incredible stories all the way through. And games like Platinum being a deluxe version are great because Diamond and Pearl really needed some help. It ended up being the definitive way to play that generation. But having a sequel story which continued the incredible plot of the originals and having this game perfectly execute and wrap up the story was awesome. After playing this, it makes me wonder what would have happened if we had gotten a Diamond and Pearl 2 or a Ruby and Sapphire 2, but I guess we'll never know. Black and White 2 have incredible pacing, and overall, even though the story is not as good as the original Black and White, it's still great all the way through. Being a sequel to a game that already had an incredible story is hard to do, and expanding on something that was already almost perfect is not an easy task, but they did a great job taking what worked about Black and White and adding to it without removing a lot. The characters that we love from the original show up in this game. You get to see how their lives have changed in the time that's passed, and as a fan of Black and White, it's great to see how the story's progressed. It's consistent all the way through, even after the climax and through the Elite Four. Fighting the Elite Four and seeing that Iris was the champion now was great too. It added yet another layer of fan service to this game, especially for people who watch the anime. But nobody's putting down a Pokemon game after they beat the main story. But the best of the best Pokemon games always have something to do in the post-game, and this is where Black and White 2 stand out among the rest. Once you beat the Pokemon League, you get to experience the best post-game that Pokemon has ever had. There is so much to do, it is really insane they were able to fit all of this into the postgame. You could tackle it in pretty much any order that you wanted. Of course, you could go and battle N and get the fusion form of the legendary from your game, which is awesome that they made this catchable and usable in-game. I personally really like Sword and Shield, but the fact that they had a Gigantamax version of Eternatus and you couldn't use it really upset me. The fusion form is great, it has an incredible design, great stats, and overall it is just one of the best parts of this game. Beyond that, there was a standard gauntlet challenge in the Black Tower or White Tree Hollow where you had to fight waves of trainers in order to win. This is similar to the Battle Frontier where you have to fight an endless amount of trainers and it's a great time. But in this game, you had a prize to earn at the end, which was either a shiny Gibble or a shiny Dratini. And having a solid goal at the end of this is a great thing to have. Getting a shiny pseudo-legendary is something that a lot of fans dream of, but that's not available in most games now. Sure, there's plenty of ways to shiny hunt it yourself, but having a guaranteed way to get it is great, and it's a great flex for people who put the time in. Areas like the Battle Frontier are limitless, but it doesn't really give you a lot to do other than collect battle points. They also added a load of legendary Pokemon that you could go and hunt down. Pokemon like the Lake Spirits, the Reggies, and Heatran and Cresselia all were available to find throughout the map. This gave you so much reason to go explore the places you had been. You never knew what you were going to stumble across when you were exploring. They also added new hidden grottos where rare Pokemon with special abilities can be found, so even people who played the originals to death would have something to go look for. Even after beating the game, I found myself wandering around trying to find different things that I missed, and I don't normally have that feeling with Pokemon games. Once you beat the game, there was the addition of the new Challenge and Easy mode. Challenge mode increased the difficulty of battles, providing a tougher experience for people who've played the game, while Easy mode is a more relaxing playthrough. Now, my main problem with this is that it requires you to beat the game in order to have a difficulty selection, which you can work around if you have a friend who's already beaten the game, but my bucket list contains 2 items. Having Pokemon have a difficulty selection, and having Betty White come back to life.
What can I say? I'm a man of simple taste.
They were so close to having a perfect game here. Having a difficulty selection in a Pokemon game would be the easiest way to make most fans happy. The number one complaint outside of performance issues is the fact that the games have become incredibly easy, and they had a perfect blueprint of how to fix it with this game, but we never saw it again. And of course, the best thing in the post-game was the Pokémon World Tournament. This was a tournament where you got to face almost every major trainer from the past games in a tournament to earn battle points. The tournament had fan favorite characters like Cynthia, Blue, and even the legendary trainer Red. You were able to fight all of these trainers with teams that were actually pretty tough. Not only was it a great challenge, but it was another part of the fan service that made this game feel so special. Seeing all of these trainers who generally use weaker Pokemon have a team that is full of hard-hitting mons is great. Combine that with getting to see them in the new art style of Gen 5, and this was just so special. It's a shame that no other game has offered something like this. If Sword and Shield or Scarlet and Violet offered a difficulty selection and a Pokémon World Tournament, I feel like everybody would think these games are the second coming of the Gen 5 games. It's simple things like this that make this game stand out. Returning fans get all of the fan service that they've been missing, and new fans get to meet and battle these trainers for the first time, catching them up on a lot of things that made the other games so special and even inspiring them to play some of the older titles. There's so much to do in the post-game that it feels like this game has a second life after you beat the main story. With modern games getting extremely shallow post-games, this is a perfect example of what fans have been begging for. It doesn't matter if you're a fan of Gen 1 or a fan of Gen 9, Black and White 2 have something for everybody. The game feels just as good as the original Black and White. It keeps the improved art style with dynamic sprites, and a battle speed where the battles feel like they don't take 7 years to complete. The earlier games on the DS were extremely slow to play through, and battles took way too long and it took me out of the experience. This kept the improvements on Black and White and feels like an even more fresh experience. Pokemon Black and White 2 stand out as exceptional sequels that build upon the foundation of the predecessors while introducing new and exciting elements and challenges. Whenever a new Pokemon game is released, this is the basis of comparison that I use to judge whether it's going to be great or not. There are features where this game excels, and other features where they got so close to making something perfect, but they just missed it. But regardless, these games are a must-play for any Pokemon fan. It offers countless hours of fun to be had. Whether you're revisiting Unova or experiencing it for the first time, these games offered a rich and engaging experience for all Pokemon fans. So yes, these games are absolutely some of the best in the entire series. If you made it this far in the video, I just wanted to say thank you for watching. I hope that you and your family have an incredible rest of your day, and if you like anything that you saw here, please consider subscribing.